Our lesson today is on equivalent fractions. And we have talked about that word equivalent before and how it means equal. Equivalent means equal. So what we're doing today is we're trying to find fractions that are equal to one another or are the same. Or trying to figure out whether two fractions are equivalent or the same or not equivalent to one another. So what I first want to do is if I have two fraction strips that are equal to one another, they are the same size, like this, okay? We can see that my pink piece is the same size as my blue piece, all right? They are equivalent. Now, I might have to take that and figure out how many sixths are equivalent to this 1/2 piece. This pink piece is 1/2, all right? And you see over here on my other fraction with the denominator of 6, my numerator is blank. I have to look at the fraction strips and figure out how many sixths did it take to equal that 1/2 piece. So I just simply count my 1/6 pieces. I have 1, 2, 3 1/6 pieces, which would be 3/6. Okay? 1/2 is equivalent to 3/6. They are equal. They are the same. Let's look at another one. Let's do that one and some of these. Okay, you might have that, and then below you might see two fractions whose denominators are both there, but the numerators are both missing. All right, and you have to figure out what numerator belongs with each fraction. How many thirds is equivalent to how many twelfths? Okay, so we see here I only have one 1/3 piece. All right, so 1 would be my numerator for the third, 1/3. 1/3 is equal to how many twelfths? So I go back to my fraction strips and I count how many 1/12 pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, it took 4 1/12 pieces to equal the 1/3. So I'm going to put 4 as my numerator above the 12. So this shows that 1/3 is equivalent to 4/12. They are equal. Now, the next thing I want to go over is you may have two fractions. You might have two fractions and then you have to decide whether or not they are equivalent. Okay? So, you might have 3/5 and 4/8. And the directions have asked you to Write equivalent or not equivalent. Decide whether these two are equal or not. So what we really need to do, the easiest way to do this is we've got to pull out our fraction strips. Okay, we can't just visualize 3/5 and 4/8 and know right off the bat whether or not they're equal. All right, we need to use our fraction strips. So I'm going to take 3 1/5 pieces. All right, 1/5, 2/5, 3/5, and then I'm going to pull 4 1/8 pieces. 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, and 4/8. Okay, so all I have to do is look at those two and see whether or not they are the same size. Do they cover the same amount of space? And the 3/5 is obviously bigger than the 4/8, so no, they are not equivalent. All right, what we would write for our answer for this would be not equivalent. They are not equal, not the same. Okay? Let's do one more of those. Let's take do 1/5 and 2/10. And let's see if they are equivalent or not equivalent. So I'm going to take a 1/5 piece and compare it with 2 1/10 pieces. So there's 1/10 and 2/10. And I'll look at those carefully, and I can see that they are exactly the same size. The 2/10 makes up the same amount as the 1/5. So they are equivalent. They are equal. Now, what if you did not have fraction strips to use to help you see those two fractions? What you would need to do in order to compare them is you would need to draw two figures, one for each fraction, of the same size, okay, but just broken into a different number of pieces. So let's do a rectangle for the 1/5 and a same size rectangle, as close to the same size as you can get it. That's really bad. Let's try that again. As close to the same size as you can get it. Now this one I'm going to break it into 5 equal pieces. And I'm going to shade in only one piece. This one I'm going to break into 10 equal pieces. And I'm going to shade in 2 of them. Okay, so again, I just did 2 shapes, one for each fraction. I did the same shape of the same size, but just split it into different number of pieces. This one I split into 5, this one I split into 2, and then shaded in however many was my numerator. And if I look at that, I can see that it's about the same amount shaded in on both. So that tells me that these two fractions are equivalent or equal. They are the same amount. Now, on your classwork, you're going to have to take two fractions, decide whether they are equivalent or not equivalent. They're going to give you a shape for each, and then you need to shade in a certain amount in order to figure out whether they're equivalent or not. Let's say you had the fractions 3/4 and 1/6, and then you might see a circle of the same size for each of those. This one would be divided into 4 pieces because the denominator is 4. This one, let's see, would be divided into 6 equal pieces because this one has a 6 as the denominator. Now, what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to shade in each of these circles, okay? So, using a crayon or a pencil, all right, for 3/4, you would want to shade in 3 of the 4 pieces. 1, 2, 3. And then over here, you would only shade in 1 of the 6 pieces. And then use those pictures to help you compare. Is the amount that you shaded in over here equivalent to the amount you shaded in over here? Are they the same amount of shaded area? And no, you have much more shaded in over here than you do over here. So the 3/4 is not equivalent to your 1/6. They are not the same. So for your answer, on that line, you would need to write not equivalent. In cursive, of course. Okay? That's how you're going to do your classwork today.